USNG Implementation Workgroup meeting of June 18th, 2025. As we do all the time, the meeting agenda is kind of broken apart into three basic parts. First half hour is administrative meeting updates. Then next half hour we'll do a community discussion about get on board. And then the last half hour, open forum. If we don't spill forward from the community discussion, which I think we're going to today, because there's a lot of meat there. And then chair closing comments, next meeting update adjournment. Administrative meeting updates, first 30 minutes. Opening committee reports, priorities review, updates, issues, and of course, old business, new business, comments, announcements, and other business. So with the opening, the attendance is being collected automatically off the Zoom file. You have heard me turn on the recorder and I'm gaveling the meeting open. Are there any changes to the agenda as published? Going once, going twice, gone. So I need a motion to accept.
Motion.
Second by
And
Cole.
okay, is anyone opposed? Hearing none, we're underway with the agenda and motion to accept as offered. First of all, thank you very much for being here. And I think everybody that's on board today has been here before. Thank you very much for making the effort. And we'll see where things go from here. Committee reports. There are three committees of the U.S. National Grid Institute. Board of Directors and Executive Committee. The responsibilities are spelled out there on the left-hand side. I'll report for the Board of Directors and the Executive Committee. Our last meeting was on May 13th. The focus is on cleaning up 2024 priorities and bringing on board a robust social media effort. The next meeting of the Board of Directors will be on Tuesday, September 23rd, I believe is what we've got there, 11 o'clock in the morning. You're always welcome to attend if you would like to do so. Just shoot me an email. Whether you're on the board or not, you can sit in and figure out what we're up to. That chair at usngi.org is the answer for that one. Finance Committee, Treasurer's Report, the current account balance is $446.51, down $7.51 from our last report, which pays for our toll-free telephone number. So there we got no debt, no outstanding bills, and the balance covers the current operating cost for the next 12 months. And if you would be so kind to give some consideration to donating, if you go to the USNGI website, the button up there on the top that says donate, you click on that, opens up a page, and we'll tell you what we're going to spend the money on. It's all the stuff that supports the things that, make a organization administratively functional. And as the Navy saying goes, sink or float, no joke, no money in the kitty, wave goodbye. So if you got a few extra bucks in your pocket and you have an opportunity to do so, appreciate anything you donate to the effort. Priorities review real quick. Here's the 2025 priorities list. The last time the board met, we tried to assign some times for things to be finished. And given that our next meeting of the implementation work group will not happen until October, I'm anticipating all but one of those items up there will have flipped to green by the next time we meet, and you can hold me to that. As you can see, as you'll see today, the USNG store is quite a ways along. In fact, we're officially opening it today. There's a lot of backside work that has to do with outstate taxes, sales tax, collecting whatever, and making sure it gets to the right pot of money that we're still working our way through. But that should be not a detriment for you jumping on there. And if there's something you either want to quote on or a pricing on, by all means, that system is up and running and we'll be able to help you out. And then item two there is finish the USNGI website backside. That's about storing administrative materials, rework of the USNG Center. Our goal is to have that done by September. All the contents there, it's reformatting and dropping it into a new, if you will, structure on a new WordPress theme that's appropriate for the current day and age. And then this national uploader for USNG maps anywhere in the U.S. We've already run through it once, and it's a matter of going back through and cleaning that up. And then there's the rest of the stuff. Finish the ELM production guide, update the USNG map production guides, and we have one item there that's gone green, begin the PR campaign. And then we added one, and that's to create an income flow for the USNG store, write our first grant request. So we're interested in trying to figure out a more robust way of making money come in the door other than begging folks for donations. So that's what we're up to with number 8. Updates, advocacy. Okay, here we go. By and large, what the updates for today involve the things that have been underway that have been trying to leverage the idea of getting out and advocating on behalf of the U.S. National Grid. As David well knows, that's on the call today. I've just went out and wandered around the countryside, attended 2 recent conferences. Presentations given. The first one was the U.S. National Grid to speed emergency response on trails. I did that over at the Joint Imagine and MICAMP annual educational conference over in Michigan. And if you're not aware of it, there's 2 separate geospatial associations in Michigan, and this was their first joint conference. They're on the way to merging, and when they get done, they'll have about 350 people in that organization. So a considerable move forward for the state of Michigan with that effort for those of us that have been involved in the past with the smaller organizations. And then June 5th, I wandered on over to Altoona, Iowa, and presented U.S. National Grid emergency location markers to the rescue. And if you want to know what that looks like in terms of moving around the planet on a map, there it is. Day 1, May 29th, they ended up at Green Bay. Then the next day, I did kind of a sidetrack to visit an old friend up in Ephraim on the Door County Peninsula in Wisconsin. And then there's the beautiful SS Badger. If you've never taken it across Lake Michigan, I highly recommend it. It's a very interesting crossing, and your car and one person is about $170. So it's about the cost of what the pain of driving and gas would cost you. The next day ended up down in Sagatuck, Michigan, and then went down to the conference there in Kalamazoo. Stayed in Kalamazoo 2 days. Stopped in Aurora, Illinois, where I've got ancestors in that area, and then wandered on over to Des Moines for the ITAG, like I said, Iowa Geospatial Information Conference, and came home to finish, what is that, just under 7 days later. So that was my wanderings. Thought you might like to see it. Anyway, advocacy, opening up upcoming, I should say, opportunities in the upper Midwest. Here's a listing that we're currently taking a look at. In 3 instances, as you can see, we're looking at potentially taking a booth out on the road, and in 2 instances, taking a look at if it might be lighter to do a presentation versus a booth. So if you should think you want somebody like me wandering into your midst to put up a booth, or maybe dragging poor Mike along with me, if you know of similar events anywhere in the U.S. that are focused on GIS, the emergency services sector, or trail user communities, please, by all means, send a note to me, and we'll take a look at it. Cole was kind enough to send me the information on the Maryland event, but by the time I got the information and whatnot, both the floor was sold out, and lo and behold, the call for presentations was over. So I could not have jumped on a jet and gone out and presented if that had been the case. But so this is the importance of trying to get out in front of this, have awareness of when these events are taking place and where they are. So maybe we can do some logistical planning to figure out how to potentially put bodies there to help spread the word.
Yes, Steve, I will be attending that conference, but yeah, take a look at for next year.
Yeah, for sure. So Cole, when you're there, when you get the dates, by all means, send them to me because I'll pencil them in and I'll have the scan on it. So
Or drive.
yeah, yeah, appreciate it. Um, Advocacy, building out our outreach effort, starting from zero. You can see, I mean, just by the website, you can see where we were in 2021. We're tracking very well with the website. As you can tell, we're less than half of the year through, and so you're going to see again the same kind of a steep climb there. Yeah, not a lot of hits, but it's 3,000 plus is better than nothing, and it's better than what we had in 2020. So good deal there. We've only got 30 folks over at the Facebook world, but again, we started with zero and we just gradually are building on that. 156, our goal here over at LinkedIn is 200. And the reason I'm mentioning these capabilities specifically here in the middle is because Mike and Mike Sovereign, who's on the call, and myself are working on a push list. What are you thinking, Mike? Now we're going to probably be over 2,000, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we haven't pushed on that list of 2,000 yet, and that's going to be to do outreach on behalf of the store. But the parallel impact is going to be to support the institute. So we're, if you will, excited about that coming up. But we still, as I said, with the store, got some things we got to clean up. And the last time we met, our recording reached the highest number of views that we've had. So again, we're seeing signs of gradual growth. It's we're not setting the world on fire like some of the influencers do, but we're getting the job done slowly but surely. We've also started. Here's an example of a note that was filed by Jules McNeff, who's on the call. We've started the effort to be more aggressive in outreach and contacting folks. And in this case, it was a letter that was sent out to the Federal Communications Commission. And that particular effort, if you want to know about those sorts of things that we've now started to move forward on, if you go to the news section of our website, lo and behold, from the newsstand, you'll see now anything that goes out the door of that nature is going to get posted to this section of the newsstand, Institute position papers and press releases, and you'll see more stuff getting posted there by the next time we get together. We've got some target stuff that I'll show you here in a minute or two. Okay, I think that cleans that piece up, takes us to issues. Jules, you know about this, I would assume. Yes, no.
Don't think so. No.
Okay, so everybody, that date, June 12th, 2025, is going to live in infamy. The case is Martin versus the United States. The legal committee or community is fawning out over the nuances of this case. But what you're about to see, I think as a geospatial person, is going to cause like 5 alarm fire bells go off in your head. This case, which was taken out of the Supreme Court. They said on a decision of, particularly with the way the Supreme Court is, a decision of 9-0. You don't get any more unanimous than that. And what were they considering? Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts. This case has its roots in a 2017 pre-dawn raid by the FBI on a home in suburban Atlanta where you can see the names of the individuals were asleep in the middle of the night, of course, because these raids always go down at 3:30 in the morning or whatever. The agents had intended to execute a search warrant at I hate this click thing, has gone bad on me. Warrants at 3741 Landau Lane, where they believed suspected gang members were hiding. But instead, the personal GPS used by Lawrence Guerrera, the FBI special agent who led the raid, directed them to 3756, and I can't pronounce it. I guess it's Denville Trace, the home of the plaintiffs. So they end up handcuffed and on the floor. One of the two adults was sleeping in bed and ended up with the FBI with a gun in his face. And the result of that, oh, come on. Here you go. Now, it's easy enough to look at addresses and think you ended up at the wrong place. But what do those addresses really mean? So this is where they were supposed to go, and this is where they ended up. Now, if you look, I put up gridding here, and oh, by the way, here's an intersection that's I'll show you something related to the intersection here in a minute or two. So, how far apart are those? Anybody want to hazard a guess? Okay, let's do it with easy math. Here's a marker for each of them. What's the lower set of digits, right? Right, then up. So if you subtract 7 from 19, what do you get? Come on, somebody help me out. It's 120 plus meters, right? These guys went to a house that was 120 meters short of where they were supposed to be. What does that look like? That's what that looks like. Oh, I thought I was supposed to run and score at the other end of the field. So I think most people would think, well, if they knocked on the door of the house next to them and went in there instead of where they went, it would be excusable. But the Supreme Court looked at the situation and they had a different opinion about this. So I'm here throwing rocks, but before I throw any more rocks, I'm going to stop and say, as a former aircraft accident investigator, the brain always wants to know, how did this happen besides the fact they were using a personal GPS and went to the wrong location? Well, remember that blue circle that I showed you? Well, if I were to pan to the left, there'd be a bunch of older homes. And so as you can pan to the right here, and you can see over here where it says Landau Lane, this looks like a up and coming, like newer collection of homes, right? And so there's that blue circle again. But what other clues are there on this particular? Now we jumped over to Google Maps. Once again, these guys rated down here. when they are supposed to have gone to the house up here. Anything else that could get you in trouble?
Now, never mind the house number right next to the door on the door jamb.
Yeah, that would be, you would think that that would be helpful. But this little Google man is telling us something. What are these blue lines when you pull them in there? That there's like everywhere on the planet, like including
Street view.
places. Yep. Places up in like Arctic Canada have street view. But lo and behold, this whole neighborhood is without street view, right? So, one of the things, if you turn the corner, you would see this private property, no solicitation, no whatever, no trespassing. So, I don't know what the deal is down at the county as to whether or not this thing is accurately mapped in or where Google got its information for where the street center lines are and the rest of it. But you can tell in this particular neighborhood, there's confusion about where stuff is, and there's mitigating circumstances that have gotten them there. Now, if I was an aircraft accident investigator in this particular instant, I would be wandering around here with something known as causal factors. And they always start out with failure to. How current was the guy's GPS database, use of address instead of like maybe no map study beforehand, no backup location, confirmation. Wouldn't you think if you're going to take a SWAT team and break people's doors down, that at a minimum you would be relying on something other than just GPS? And based on street address, and no understanding of the side of street house numbering. I mean, the convention in the United States is if you're on the north or on the west side of the street, it's going to be what? An even number. If you're on the south or east side of the street, it's going to be a odd number. And lo and behold, again, if you'll remember, those two street numbers, one was odd and one was even. And then there's this thing called contributing factors. Sorry, went off the bottom of the slide, but it was a private neighborhood. How current was Fulton County's database so that both the GPS people and whoever would be able to have accurate information about where buildings are. And then I went this morning and found a picture available of where they should have gone, available from a realtor website. Was that available back in 2017? Don't know. So, I don't know why I'm going off the bottom here, but I am.
Gonna make a quick point
Go for it.
or observation, I guess. As far as Fulton County database versus what's on Google, Apple Maps, all those will not take authoritative county data from the counties. They don't want to assemble thousands of them nationwide to work all together. Now, that said, I'm also in the process of working with the NG 911, which is the update to that system, which eventually will be a nationwide address set, which could, if people do their homework and background work, have helped in this situation.
Yep, understood. But we're dealing with reality now, and I hope we get to where you're going with that project. But what's this? Let me talk through what this is going to cost right now. This particular case alone is 1.8 million so far. Because as you can see there, 1 million and Martin receiving 750,000. These damages were part of a larger award that also included past and future medical expenses, the loss of earning capacity. And so the yellow down there tells us the important part. Because of the Supreme Court ruling, and I'm not a lawyer, but this is what I'm suggesting has just happened. that every other similar case going forward no longer has protection for geospatial mistakes. They basically said that the acts or omissions uh, sections of law that exempt investigative or law enforcement officers for having um, legal cases brought against them, if you make this kind of buffoonery, um, you're no longer protected. So it's the same thing as me walking into court and saying, well, Judge, you shouldn't fine me because I didn't know that was the law. Well, similar situation, in my opinion. But we'll let the legal beagle sort it out. But to me, from looking at this case, this is to me where I think we've ended up. We need authors, and lo and behold, Rich McCree, I keep beating the drum. He's got an open invitation anytime you want to submit an article for Wildfire Magazine. Knock yourself out. And thank you, Jules, because Jules picked up the mantle and ran with it over at GPS World. And where can you find Jules' article? You bet. It's where we've been talking about resources, news. You can get there in a couple of different ways, and you'll find his article right there at the top of the solution, U.S. National Grid. Great article. Please consider taking a read of it. You'll find it there. Okay, who or what did I miss? Going once, going twice, gone. Okay, old business. For those of you who've been around a bit, you know that we've got a problem with a gal that in theory did something funky on U.S. National Grid on behalf of all of FEMA. We're trying to still sort that thing out, but I'm down to the bottom line, just sending a letter to FEMA headquarters, see where it goes from there. Rapid deploy, same thing. I haven't had any luck with those folks, so they're going to get a letter. And then U.S. National Grid on Wikipedia. Randy and several others volunteered to wander into that and try to make that have a better connection of MGRS to U.S. National Grid to Randy for action. New business. The only thing we've got in new business is agenda items for the next IWG. And does anybody have anything that you think we should consider as being more of a breakout kind of a 30 to 60 minute informational thing? Any ideas out there? Going once? Going twice? Gone. Okay, it takes us down to, I originally arm twisted the board of directors into us meeting for this group on the 15th of October. But I would like to see if who's ever on the call is flexible enough that we can slide back to the 8th of October, because the 15th may offer the opportunity to present over in Wisconsin. Does anybody have any objections to using the 8th of October?
That isn't the Minnesota GIS-LIS weekend, is it? That should be the
Nope.
weekend before, I think.
Yep. The week before is GIS-LIS. Yep. Anyone else with concerns? Okay, I'm going to change it to the 8th then. Okay, comments, announcements, other business. Anybody have anything? Going once.
Hey, this is Cole. Question. I know that Jules or some others were working on the E911 and implementation of USNG. What's the status of that?
I don't know if I heard your question completely, Cole. Could you repeat it?
It's about the E911 and the use of USNG with that. Is Jules working on that?
Well, that was the FCC filing. It was to acquaint the FCC with use of the U.S. National Grid in reporting wireless locations from E911.
Okay.
So what comes of that, frankly, I'm not sure, but we hopefully could use that filing as leverage to interact with some of the other players in the E911 game. I don't know, Nina's and the other folks who deal with like FirstNet and things like that. Not sure who they all are these days.
Thanks, Jules.
I know in the NINA standard, there has been provisions made and fields added for USNG coordinates so that as the counties want to populate them, they can. But there's no requirement for it at this point.
Yeah, and that was the hope purpose of, and I don't have the filing in front of me, but there was a very bolded recommendation in there that it be made a requirement for E9 for wireless position reporting, because they were getting all wrapped around the axle with vertical when they didn't have a real good handle on the horizontal. So don't know what, if anything, will come of that. We'll see what develops out of that notice of proposed rulemaking and what the FCC does with it.
Again, Jules' letter, if you read that, it's a phenomenal piece of writing. You really owe it to yourself to take a read of that. And again, it's available in the news section of the USNGI website. Anything else out there? Going once, going twice, gone. Okay, community discussion. Get on board. What I've got for you is the train is leaving the station, I think. And if I can fight my way through Zoom, we have boiled it down to 4 items of discussion for what I hope is an engaged discussion. The ESRI grid overlay would be one. USNG app.org 2.1 is on the street. USNGI, the U.S. Census Bureau discussion, and the USNG store is now open. So let's take a look at what we got here. First is effort number 1. I was hoping that the authors of this would be on the call today. Randy Knipple, I had thought would be here, but the gist of it is that the migration at ESRI has left on the sidelines the grid overlay widget as ESRI is moving to the Experience Builder. So we have sent a letter, as you can see there on the letter head, to Redlands, California, the Director of Development, and hopefully out of that, we are paired with another letter that went out from NAPSG, which is the National Alliance for Public Safety GIS, and they're interested in seeing it brought back. And maybe if we pair up in a online social media posting, that would be again stuff, the fuel for the fire to try to move this forward. So any comments, thoughts, or discussion further on this one? Hearing nothing. Moving forward with Jim Klassen, who has had this project under his wing from the very beginning. The USNG app .org is as you can see there, a progressive web application, which basically means that rather than being a true app that you go to a store and download, is simply available by typing in the URL. And if you have previously saved this on your phone as a bookmarked item, you'll need to delete it to get the new version reloaded on your web page. And so once it's there, it's permanently available on the phone, whether or not you have a connection or not, because it simply is using the browser page itself to display the coordinate location of the phone as a U.S. National Grid location. And one of the more interesting applications that has recently come about with this is Mike Sovereign, who's on the call, and I were on the floor at the Trail Builders event in Madison, Wisconsin. And next to us, a gal from the Wisconsin Horse Riding Association turned out to be an emergency manager up in Proto Bay. And when she saw this, she was like, we need that. We need that right now. And she was kind enough to call me back and said, hey, I'm up here in Proto Bay. Everybody loves this app because now we have a way to be able to effectively communicate where somebody is injured and the rest of it, and so on and so forth. So it ends up being used in places you might not have thought about because they've got no triangulation capability or any other fancy system up there to try to figure out where people are when they get in trouble, which seems kind of odd given the climate and the circumstances of working on oil rigs. But lo and behold, that's the reality. So they're tickled pink with it. So three major changes, and this came from suggestions from Bruce Hebard. A more prominent and quicker bypass of the information of the user terms and conditions so that you don't have to scroll through all that stuff to hit the OK button. The pop-up now just allows you to get rid of it immediately. And then the information button that's up here, if you want to go read stuff later, lo and behold, it'll pop up. As you can see here, Jim did he did a flip-flop rather than being black lettering on white. It's now white lettering on black. And instructions now include a note that help folks understand what they have to do to actually enable the location services on their phone. And of course, with the Apple, you actually have to turn on the location tracking function per app. So just as a reminder and a thought, and we've tried to again put that stuff into the instructions so it's readily available. And if you'll read through the instructions, there isn't any doubt about what's the meaning of the red numbers, the lines through them, the accuracy, all of that stuff is explained as clearly as we can. So any questions or thoughts on that one? Going once, going twice, gone. Okay, let's see. Is there anyone on this call that was involved in the discussion with the U.S. Census Bureau? This is terrible. I'm having to explain everything. I think I need extra pay. So I'm just trying to think, is there any? Georgiana, I saw her earlier trying to tune in and whatever. But anyway, as you can see there's kind of a listing up there of what's gone on with the first letter that we sent out was driven by the U.S. Census Bureau actually went out and asked for input about what grid system should be used for distributing their census data in 2030. So that we sent in a response on April 8th and suggested to them that U.S. National Grid might be a good way to go. And lo and behold, this wasn't one of these things where it just fell into the administrative black hole that Washington, D.C. can be. And we got a response from Joshua Kautz, who is the branch chief international and national engagement branch up at the U.S. Census Bureau for their geography division. And I had a phone call with him and we discussed this further. And their big problem with trying to use U.S. National Grid was the grid zone junction, where the the areas in the grid zone junction get so small that it opens the door for reverse engineering to determine core data. And so that kind of gets them in trouble by virtue of the world is not flat, it's round, and they've got to find a solution for this problem to be able to deliver data on a more granular level. And so after I got that initial feedback on May 28th, we held an internal meeting to discuss this with the U.S. National Grid. Several people from the board of directors and at least one volunteer came forward because they were interested in this topic and wanted to understand it better. And simultaneously, the good folks down at Florida State University, out of that discussion, came up with a graphic to show what the idea was behind what we would propose as a way to solve the grid zone junction problem. And that would be to take the slivers and add them statistically to the adjoining whole sized squares that make up the U.S. national grid. And as you can see here on the left-hand side is how the world comes together at one of these grid zone junctions. And then you can see on the right-hand side how we would think to accommodate that. So that was our pitch, if you will, the to the U.S. Census Bureau. Their problem is, as I indicated earlier, in their current solution, this is not exactly, in fact, they'll admit they're still trying to figure this whole thing out, but they're thinking more along this sort of an approach of using a, a larger grid type system, which is based on 110 and 100 kilometers, which mirrors what the U.S. national grid would be. But by doing it by state as a way to try to accommodate getting rid of the grid zone junctions. Now, I will qualify that and say that's the thinking that they have, as I understand it, for where they want to go with the data attribution into a gridded format. What this group, you can see these are the folks. Georgiana was unable to make the call, but these are the folks within the Institute that are very interested about this circumstance and are trying to, again, continue to work with the Census Bureau to see if there's a seamless way to take what you just saw from the U.S. Census Bureau current thinking on distribution and finding a way to make it readily available on a retrofit back into the U.S. national grid. So that's what I know about that. And I apologize again. I was hopeful that we'd have on the call today a couple of the experts that could talk more lucidly about this. Jules, do you have something you want to add? Okay.
No, well, other than has there been any response from the Census Bureau to the latest proposal? I guess I noticed it. They put it together on the 13th of June, so it wasn't that long ago. But
again, what we've decided to do is continue the dialogue. Okay. So we're working in that direction, Jules. But I'm not holding out hope that they're going to follow what we're doing. What we're thinking at this time is we're going to need to figure out a way that when the data is distributed, to try to fit it back into the U.S. national grid in a way that makes it effectively usable by grid cell. So the mathematicians in here are telling me it's not a problem. It's just making sure we understand what the Census Bureau does when it does it. Is that helpful?
Well, and their interest in doing things on a state by state basis, is that, I mean, that's, uh,
They're actually looking at a European model. And again, I'm very apologetic here on this, that I'm largely shooting at the hip on this one.
Yeah.
So, you know, as I said, we're so thin today that we don't have the experts on board that were in the meeting and know this stuff like the back of their hand. But I've been reassured, or I came away from the meeting reassured, that the availability of U.S. Census Bureau data into the U.S. national grid will be a possibility starting in 2030. Which, you know,
okay.
which FEMA needs basically for trying to figure out where do you put resources, you know, where are the areas of concentrations of old folks' homes, like I'll be in shortly, those kinds of things. So, you know, anyway. Okay. All right. Let's move on from this one unless anybody's got any more questions. Because the big part of the show is yet to go. All right, going once, going twice. Okay. The USNG store is open. I would now like to pass the torch to this man, Mike Sovereign, who we owe an incredible debt of gratitude for all of the amazing work that he did, both in formatting, ideas, graphic development, whatever. Um, I'm going to turn the screen over to you, Mike, and you can walk us through some highlights from the store. And if I can only stop the share, you should
Okay.
be good to rock and roll.
Just sent you a request.
Oh, and it's terrible when I get a request.
All right, let me try again. Okay, looks like I'm good. Well, thank you for the kind words, but it was definitely a team effort. So I thought today everyone can see my screen, right?
You're good.
Okay. I thought we would just take a quick tour through the site, but feel free to stop me if you have any questions or if you want to see any other specific areas. But here we are on the home page. So as you can see, we have this carousel banner. So this first one shows the different stakeholders who have used ELMS. This next one shows the endorsers of the use of the U.S. National Grid. And then we just have a couple other scenes. This is the beautiful city of Minneapolis. And we have a couple others here. And then when we scroll down, we have some of our different product categories. This will probably get replaced with our fourth one, which is posts and hardware, but that is something we're still working on and should have ready yet this summer. So now let's go to under About ELMS. We're going to go to Frequently Asked Questions. And so what we did for this is we just kind of gathered as many of the questions we've been asked in the past over the years and tried to kind of group them by category. And so you can see here we have one about kind of the need, the challenges, and emergency location, and we can just kind of pop open. We try to put graphics on occasion in the different questions and answers. If we go under the solution, I thought this would just be a good basic one. Obviously, it's old news to all of you, but what is an ELM? And then we have a little diagram of kind of the different parts and pieces that actually make it up. And then if we go under USNG and ELMS in practice, this one about the installation process. We do have another page, which we'll get to later, about installation planning steps. That goes a lot more in depth. Tried to, pepper in some images of real world ELM installations. This one in Wisconsin, the middle one in Georgia, and then this one on the right from Minnesota. And then I wish Randy was here because he gets all the credit for this one, but USNG versus other location methods. And so what three words is the one that he's kind of hammered on a lot. And so we took some of his points as well as his graphic and just kind of spruced it up a little bit and placed it prominently here, hopefully conveying to people that USNG checks all the boxes, whereas these other ones, you can't say the same. And then again, there's additional detail there about it. Yeah, so I mean, feel free at your leisure, like Steve said, is all live, so you can kind of go through the different ones, see what you think. We might be adding new ones in the future if you have any suggestions. One that I actually did add based on some feedback we got at the International Trail Summit in Madison was, Steve, remember that one guy who came up to us and he was like, oh, well, I got my iPhone and, iPhone 14 and newer, they have this free SOS feature. I think this via Global Star. And iPhone or Apple was supposed to start charging for it, I think by 2025, but they haven't as of yet. But this guy thought that was kind of a, all-in solution. This whole USNG Elm thing doesn't really matter anymore. So I tried to do a little bit of research. Steve and I put our heads together and kind of said, well, not so fast. There are definitely some advantages to US National Grid and the usage of elms that this, feature from the iPhone cannot replace. So that kind of covers showing you briefly the FAQs, but like I said, let me know if you want me to stop and go in deeper on anything. But now we'll go over to Elm project tools. So this demo Elm maker is something that Jim Klassen made, and I know he's in the process of revamping it, but I'll show you what is currently there. So it will be a link to usngmarker.org. And this is, right now more for kind of demonstration purposes than actual kind of practical use. But okay, I think we're somewhere in the boundary waters. So you just click up here, make USNG marker. I'll just click a spot, download PDF sample sign, and here you go. So I know we've talked about in the past, maybe being able to print kind of larger size. I mean, this is not exactly a 6x9, but maybe a 9x12, using it for just kind of a temporary thing if you're having an event, some sort of bike race, something of that nature. But like I said, Jim's working on the next version of that. Let's now go to install planning steps, which I referenced earlier. So here it kind of breaks down in detail the 8 steps that Steve had listed. So from build your team all the way to installing the elms and practice response, and then obviously publicizing your effort. There are links throughout the website. This one here is
Well, hello there.
our very own Steve Swayze giving a 26-minute presentation. And then here are just all those steps, but broken out in more detail. Again, we tried to kind of put some applicable photos throughout using real world images when possible. Step 4, accurately record planned elm locations. We have the elm production input spreadsheet that people can download. It will come up. Well, it will, I guarantee it. Oh, it's over here. Oh, there we go. So that's where you put in the different coordinates. If you already have a post, what is the material, what is the size, that kind of stuff. And now we'll go to project ideas. So this top section shows some of the websites that different counties throughout the country have done. I in particular really like this Cobb County one. So we'll just click on that. I'm sure you guys have all seen this before. Trails, then just zoom in, and they actually have, all of their elms placed in this map, which I think is awesome, that we can just, go in and look at it. And then we have one from Dane County, Lake County, Minnesota. And then we have some other different printable materials that have been done in the past, as well as this Elm Information Sign training aid that you can print on your own. It just kind of gives a little information of how to do that if you want to do like the foam core or the plastic version of that for training purposes. Now we'll go to Elm service providers. We'll look specifically at manufacturers. So these are different companies that we've worked with in the past. So you have Carsonate in South Carolina, Gopher Sign in South Dakota, IPI in Iowa, Rhino in Minnesota, and then Vulcan down in Alabama. And then Steve, if I'm missing anything, if there's anything you want to cover in addition, you stop me and let me know. Otherwise, I'll move on to probably the most exciting part, which is the actual products themselves. So Elm system products. So as I showed earlier, post and hardware, that's coming yet this summer. But let's just hop into the Elms themselves. We'll just go to 9x12. And when we did have those real world photos, we did try to include them. So I think this one's Florida, this one's Minnesota. And then here we have a price range. This is not an item that you can just readily add to the cart. As you see, it just add to quote. And the reason there's a range is actually explained right down here and here. So depending on how many you're ordering, how soon you need it, what type of material you're using, and then different kind of customizations that you might desire. And then some more information about how to order. And then again, another kind of diagram of the different parts and pieces of what makes up the Elm. So let's say you're starting on a big project and you want to add some of these to the quote. You just click add to quote. Here you can then browse your list. Let's say, well, I think, right now we'll say we need 25 of those. And then let's say, you know what? I think we're going to need some other versions. Maybe it's on the water. So let's look at this buoy sticker here. Again, gives kind of the range depending on the, customizations and other factors. So we'll add, I don't know, we'll add 6 of those. I can type it in there. There we go. And then we just have this form here, kind of basic information, first name, last name, email, etc. But then we have best time to call, desired project completion date, and then a detailed description of any customization needed for the products. And then just kind of any additional information you want us to know. So when someone sends us the request, Steve and I will get that. We can review it, and then we'll get back to the customer within 72 hours to actually have a real kind of conversation about what their project all entails. So those are the products, or some of the products that are for quote. That's the majority of them. But if we go to Elm-related products, the only items you can readily buy just right by adding it to the cart are the Romer readers. So let's say, you know what? I want 1,000 of those suckers. So we'll click on this one. We'll add it to the cart. View cart, or you can just click up here. Check out. And similarly to the quote, but a little different. You just put in, your personal information. You have the shipping and handling here, billing information, and then you're good to go. So right now we won't buy that. So we'll check out other items. So we'll go to Swag You'll Love. Steve came up with that. That was pretty good. We're going to add more, but if you guys have any specific ideas, let us know, because it's really just up to our creativity. We do tote bags, stickers, jackets, hoodies, whatever. So what this is actually a link to a Zazzle store. So let's say you like this two-tone mug. Just click shop. Brings you right here. You can even customize it. I think I will stop it so you can't, I don't know. I like the black and white. I think that looks sharp with the got grid. But if you want a larger one, you can get a 15 ounce for a little bit extra. But again, we do plan on adding many more products. So you let us know what you want to show off, and we'll be happy to add it. And then this area is pretty robust. The free resources, direct link to USNG app. So as Steve kind of covered earlier, is the new version of the web app. We also have Find Me SAR, and then these are links to applications that may use USNG or MGR as coordinates. So what I did is it's just a direct link to a page with the search term US National Grid. But then here we have a whole section of online tools. Again, we already covered that USNG marker maker. Here we have the USGS topo maps. Randy Knippel had said it was a little difficult to access the actual topo map, so he actually came up with this list of instructions. And so, again, forgive me if it's something that you all know, but they do have a little explainer video, but I thought Randy's instructions were quite concise. So based on his instructions, you click 24K, and then you find whichever topo series you want, and then you can download the Geo PDF. So, and then we also have the NAPSA USNG lookup viewer, which I've used in the past, and then an assortment of other options here. And then when Steve and I went to that International Trail Summit, we made up some new flyers. So you can readily download those flyers, double-sided flyers, and print them out yourself. We also have the trifold brochure, and then the USNG poster as well. As you can see, we do have some other responders guide, dispatchers guide, a few other things here that are still in the works. If we do have any volunteers who want to take on any of these specific guides or diagrams, or if you want to, give us some ideas, feedback on what you'd like to see in them, feel free to let us know. Steve, I think that's really all I had planned for the kind of breakdown, but you let me know if, or anyone let me know if there's any other areas that you want to check out.
Hey, I think the more appropriate question is to ask the assembled masses
Yes.
if they have any questions for you, because you've done a better job than I would have ever done driving this thing. So
That work is extraordinarily thorough. I mean, it's amazing how much effort and you put into this. It's a really quality presentation across the board.
Wow. Thank you, Jules. I really appreciate it.
I look forward to going through some of the details of it. It's fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you.
and
We need to add a hat to the swag stuff, though. I think get.
I think I was looking at like a trucker
like
hat
it.
too. So yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
no, that's good. I'd buy one right away.
Okay.
Maybe
Added tomorrow.
a golf cap type, and maybe one of those bucket hats that.
Sure.
Great idea. So Jules hit on something that for the folks that are here today, or anybody that hears this as a recording, we at this point in the game, we're doing a soft opening on this. As we've explained, we're sitting with 2,000 points of contact that we're going to push this thing to. But we'd first like to start out with, groups like this to go through, and if you find they're certain to be there, as thorough as we've tried to be on reading and rereading, there's going to be typos here and there. And where you run into that stuff, we'd love to have you send us a note and say, hey, do you know that you had an aw shucks someplace where you shouldn't have? So, yeah, please, by all means. Any other thoughts? Going once, going twice. Okay, I'll take back driving the show here. Mike,
Sounds good.
Thank you for that great brief. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Well, the last thing that Mike mentioned was that we have got, there we go. We've got some potential areas to help. I have in my possession at least the responder's guide and the dispatcher's guide, original workup kind of things. The ELM production guide is also, well into its development. And we heard from the sheriffs when we were out there that the conference that we did in winter, that they were looking for something that would schematically help them understand how USNG, either through the app or within their call system, could be thought of functionally in the flow of a response. So that's what we've been thinking about trying to do with this 911 call processing diagram. And I'm sure it's going to be something that's going to get kicked around quite a bit before it finally is in a final form. But that would be our goal there. And as it says at the bottom here, if anybody's willing to help either proofread this stuff or pick up the ball and run with any one of these original drafts to give us input or feedback on, just send a note to chair@usngi.org. So thank you for thinking about that. We've run over, as I indicated when we started this, with the discussion part, and now we've hit the place where we call it the open forum. If anybody has another topic of pressing concern that they'd like to bring forward, now's the time to do so. Going once, going twice, gone. Okay, open forum, not hearing anything on the other end of the can. Okay, it takes us down to adjournment. We run through the list up there. As you can see, we're down to the last item. We are going to be looking at the next board of directors meeting Tuesday, September 23rd. And we've engineered two of these meetings close together. And maybe that's backfired by the level of participation. Maybe need to rethink it. But quite frankly, I needed a couple of months off from all the stuff I'm involved in. So I've been able to achieve a gap of a July, August, and almost a good chunk of September. So the first meeting I'll be seeing again will be September 23rd. And that'll be for the board of directors. If you want to attend, shoot me an email. IWG, next time we get together, October 8th is what we've decided on. Homework, if you're willing to do some, write article or write articles. Help us get the social media numbers up and contribute where you can. And I think that takes us down to an end time. Looks like about 14 after the hour. I appreciate everyone having been here. Any last minute thoughts? Going once, going twice, gone. Here we go. The time is always right to do what is right. Martin Luther King. Thanks everyone for being here. Really appreciate it. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you, Steve.